20 years ago, Officer Rob Jackson made an extraordinary choice. He adopted 6 black girls no one else wanted. Against all odds, he raised them with love and resilience. Now, 2 decades later, these daughters have grown up, and what they do for the man who changed their lives will bring tears to your eyes. Stay tuned for a story of family, sacrifice, and an unforgettable tribute that redefines love. Also, let us know where you're listening from and subscribe to our channel. On a quiet autumn afternoon, Officer Rob Jackson patrols Greenfield, Alabama town he knows like the back of his hand. While driving down Magnolia Street, his radio crackles to life, summoning him to a house on the outskirts of town. It's a case of abandonment involving multiple minors. When Rob arrives, he finds 6 young black girls, huddled together in fear after learning their parents died in a tragic accident. Moved by their situation, he comforts them, instinctively offering them safety and reassurance. But as the girls are taken into Child Protective Services, Rob feels a powerful pull he can't shake. Rob couldn't get the scene out of his mind. 6 pairs of wide, frightened eyes staring up at him, their tiny hands clutching each other as if they were holding on to the only thing they had left. He had spent years on the police force, responding to all kinds of calls. He'd seen people at their worst and witnessed tragedy more times than he cared to count. But this was different. Those 6 girls had lost everything in one horrible accident. And as he sat alone that evening, his home eerily quiet, Rob felt a stirring he hadn't known in a long time, a powerful urge to do something he couldn't explain. That night, Rob tossed and turned, unable to shake the feeling. Since his wife, Anne, had passed 5 years earlier, he'd moved through his life as if on autopilot, doing his job, greeting his neighbors, and pretending not to notice the empty spaces in his life. But seeing those girls made something click deep inside him. Maybe it was the loneliness he didn't want to admit. Maybe it was a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Or maybe he just knew they needed him as much as he needed them. The next morning, he picked up the phone and called Linda, the social worker he had met at the scene. As soon as she answered, he heard the weariness in her voice. He could imagine how hard her job must be, dealing with kids who'd suffered so much, seeing that pain every day. "Linda, it's Officer Jackson," he began, his voice a little shaky. "I was thinking about those girls." There was a pause, and then Linda sighed. "They're at the emergency foster placement for now, but finding a home that will take all 6 of them? That's going to be tough. Most foster families can take 1 or 2 children, maybe 3. But 6? It's unlikely. They'll probably be separated." Rob felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The thought of the girls being split up, each of them going to different homes, facing their grief alone, tore at him. He took a deep breath. What if I took them in? Linda was silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke, her voice gentle but firm. "Rob, this isn't something to decide lightly. Taking in 6 children is a huge responsibility. And, no offense, but you're a single white man. There will be challenges, both culturally and practically. Are you sure you're prepared for that?" Rob knew the question was coming, but hearing it aloud was different. He felt a flicker of doubt. Was he crazy to think he could do this? He didn't know anything about braiding hair or dealing with the kinds of questions they'd face as a multiracial family. But as he thought of the girls, he realized he couldn't bear the idea of them facing that world alone. "I know it'll be hard," he admitted, "but I can't sit back and do nothing. Those girls need a home, and I think I can give them one." Linda hesitated, then agreed to start the paperwork. But the challenges began immediately. First came the visits and evaluations. His home was inspected, each room assessed for suitability. He had to sit through hours of interviews where his motivation, character, and stability were questioned. The social workers probed every aspect of his life, his job, and even his relationship with Anne. They needed to be sure he was doing this for the right reasons. Some friends expressed surprise, while others questioned his sanity. His partner at the police station, Tom, was supportive but cautious. "Rob, I get it. You're a good man, and you want to help. But 6 kids? That's a lot. I mean, when was the last time you babysat even 1 kid?" Rob laughed, though he knew Tom had a point. His longest stretch around kids was a few hours helping out with his nieces and nephews. This would be an entirely different reality. But support also came from unexpected places. His neighbor, Mrs. Wilkins, who usually only offered mild gossip, showed up one evening with a homemade lasagna and a few words of encouragement. I think it's wonderful what you're doing, she said as she handed him the dish. Those girls deserve a good home, and I know Anne would be proud of you. Hearing Anne's name filled him with a bittersweet sense of reassurance. She'd always had a soft spot for children, volunteering at the school and running the holiday food drives. Maybe he was doing this for her too, to continue the life of love and kindness they'd shared. After what felt like a lifetime of scrutiny and paperwork, Rob was finally approved. He drove to the social services office that day with a mix of excitement and sheer terror. Linda met him in the lobby, her expression a blend of skepticism and admiration. "Are you ready?" she asked, glancing at him with a small smile. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied, feeling his pulse quicken. The girls were waiting in a quiet room down the hall. As he stepped inside, their eyes turned toward him, filled with uncertainty and fear. They barely knew him, and he was sure they had no idea what to expect. Chloe, the eldest, held her siblings close, her protective stance making her look older than her 12 years. Rob knelt down, trying to make himself seem less intimidating. "Hey girls, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Rob, Officer Jackson. I'm here to take you home if you're ready." There was a moment of silence, and then cautiously Chloe stepped forward. Are you going to be our dad now?" The question hit him like a wave. He hadn't thought about it that way, hadn't really considered what title he would take in their lives. But looking into her hopeful eyes, he realized that was exactly what he was promising. "I'd like to be, Chloe. I know I have a lot to learn, and I might not get everything right, but I'll do my best every single day." One by one, the girls approached, each with their own hesitance. Naomi, the quiet one, held her sister's hand tightly, while Tessa, her brow furrowed, looked at him with a mixture of distrust and curiosity. Little Zoe clutched her stuffed rabbit and looked up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. They all piled into his car, a procession that felt surreal. The drive home was filled with silence, punctuated by soft whispers and nervous glances from the back seat. When they arrived at his modest two-story house, he showed them around, watching as they timidly explored the rooms, each girl gravitating toward a corner or nook where they could claim their space. That first night was awkward and unfamiliar. They ate spaghetti around the dining table, the silence thick and heavy as they tried to navigate this strange new life. Rob found himself fumbling over words, unsure how to make them feel comfortable, while the girls were too shy to say much. But as he tucked them in that night, something shifted. Chloe, who had remained stoic, finally broke down, her shoulders shaking with silent tears. Rob knelt beside her, placing a comforting hand on her back. "It's okay to feel scared. I'm scared too, but we're going to figure this out together." She sniffed, wiping her eyes. Will you be here in the morning?" His heart broke at the question. He couldn't imagine what kind of fears they must have carried, the instability and uncertainty of their young lives. He wanted to promise her the world. "I'll be here every morning. I'm not going anywhere." As he walked back to his own room that night, Rob felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and fulfillment. This wasn't the life he had expected for himself, and he knew the road ahead would be challenging. But for the first time in years, his house didn't feel empty. And as he lay awake, listening to the quiet sounds of 6 sleeping girls down the hall, he knew that somehow they were right where they all belonged. As Rob learns the ropes of fatherhood, his inexperience becomes glaringly clear. He tackles everything from setting routines to doing hair, often with comical results. But he persists, relying on advice from Mother Vivian, a wise church elder who introduces Rob to the church community. With her help, he learns about Black hair care, cultural traditions, and the importance of giving the girls a connection to their heritage. Despite early challenges, Rob feels a new sense of purpose, and the girls begin to trust that they're truly home. At first, Greenfield looked at Rob's new family as a curiosity, something to gossip about in hushed tones. The sight of a white man shepherding 6 black daughters through the aisles of the local grocery store, or helping them load into his car outside the school, was enough to spark rumors and raise eyebrows. While some people smiled politely or nodded in approval, others whispered among themselves, questioning his motives. Rob did his best to ignore the whispers and sidelong glances, telling himself that it didn't matter what people thought. But as the girls settled into their new lives, he saw just how much those stares and muttered comments affected them, especially Tessa. Tessa was 12, a budding basketball star with a fiercely independent spirit. Yet she had never been in a situation like this. At school, she became a target for teasing, her classmates questioning her place in the Jackson household. The taunts were subtle at first, a few giggles in the hallway, whispered jokes during gym class. But over time, they grew bolder. "Hey Tessa, why do you live with that cop? He's not your real dad, right?" one boy asked her during lunch, his voice loud enough for the whole table to hear. Tessa glared at him, her hands clenched into fists. "He is my real dad," she said fiercely, though her voice wavered with uncertainty. "And at least he wanted me." The boy scoffed, smirking as his friends snickered. Tessa stormed away, her head held high, but her heart heavy. When she got home that afternoon, she locked herself in her room, refusing to come out even when Rob knocked gently on the door. The following day, Rob drove Tessa and her sisters to school in silence, glancing in the rearview mirror as Tessa sat sullenly in the back, her arms folded and her eyes fixed on the window. He didn't know exactly what had happened, but he could see the hurt simmering beneath her surface. That evening, over dinner, Chloe finally spoke up, her voice quiet but insistent. "Dad, some kids at school have been saying things about us, about our family." Rob set down his fork, his appetite gone. He could handle the gossip and sideways glances, but hearing that his girls were bearing the brunt of it filled him with a deep, helpless anger. "Like what?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Just that we don't belong together," Chloe said, looking down. "That you're not our real dad." Tessa, who had been silent up until now, spoke up with a surprising fierceness. "Why do they care anyway? It's none of their business. We're a family." Rob's heart ached for his daughter, for all of his girls. He wanted to protect them from the harshness of the world, but he knew he couldn't shield them from everything. So that night, feeling lost and unsure, he called the one person he trusted to guide him through, Mother Vivian. Mother Vivian listened quietly as Rob poured out his worries over the phone. Her gentle voice soothed him, her understanding providing a balm to his frayed nerves. After he finished, she paused before offering a solution. "Bring the girls to church this Sunday, Rob," she said. "Let them meet the community here. Let them see that they're not alone, that they belong. I think it'll do them, and you, some good." Sunday morning, Rob loaded the girls into the car, feeling a nervous flutter in his stomach. Church wasn't something he had thought of, but he knew the importance it held for many people in Greenfield, especially in the Black community. As they pulled up to the modest building, he noticed how the girls' apprehensive faces softened at the sound of gospel music drifting from the open doors. Mother Vivian met them at the entrance, her smile wide and welcoming. "You made it," she exclaimed, hugging each girl in turn. She was dressed in a deep purple dress, her silver hair tucked neatly beneath a wide-brimmed hat adorned with a feather. Her presence seemed to wrap around them like a warm blanket. Inside, the congregation greeted them with open arms, the sense of community and belonging almost palpable. Rob felt the tension in his shoulders ease as he took a seat near the front, the girls settling beside him, looking around curiously. The service began with a joyful hymn, the choir's voices rising like a wave that washed over them, filling the small church with warmth and spirit. The girls glanced at each other, some tapping their feet in time with the music, their faces lighting up. Tessa, who had been so withdrawn, began swaying slightly, her eyes brightening as she let herself enjoy the music. When the pastor stepped forward to speak, he welcomed Rob and his daughters, inviting them to stand. Rob felt his cheeks flush, but the applause that followed was genuine and kind. As they sat back down, he noticed the approving nods and warm smiles directed their way. For the first time, Rob felt like they truly belonged. After the service, Mother Vivian introduced them to members of the congregation who were eager to meet Officer Rob and his beautiful girls. A few women with warm smiles and even warmer hugs surrounded the girls, complimenting their hair, asking about school, and offering support. One woman, Mrs. Claiborne, an elder with a deep voice and a heart as wide as the Alabama sky, took a particular interest in Tessa, sensing the girls' unease. She pulled Tessa aside, her voice low and gentle as she spoke to her. "You know, young lady," she said, her eyes twinkling, "when I was your age, I had to deal with a lot of people who thought I didn't belong. They'd look at me funny, say things that hurt. But you know what I learned? I learned that I have just as much right to be here, to live my life, as anyone else. And so do you. You're strong, and you've got a good family behind you. Don't let anyone make you feel small." Tessa nodded, her posture softening as Mrs. Claiborne placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. As they drove home that day, the girls were unusually chatty, sharing stories of the kind people they had met and laughing about the compliments they had received. Even Tessa was smiling, her defenses lowered, her spirit visibly lifted. Rob felt a surge of gratitude. The church had given them more than just a place to worship. It had given them a community, a reminder that they were not alone in facing the challenges of life. And as he listened to the girls' laughter filling the car, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were a family, and they would face the world together. Over the coming weeks, their church family became an integral part of their lives. The girls joined the youth choir, helped out with community events, and made friends who accepted them for who they were. The members of the congregation checked in on Rob and the girls, offering advice, hugs, and encouragement. When the whispers in town grew louder or the girls encountered harsh comments at school, the church community reminded them that they were loved, that they belonged. Rob even found himself involved in conversations about race and adoption, learning more from the church elders about what his girls might face and how he could support them. He was humbled by their openness and their willingness to guide him. One evening, as he tucked Tessa into bed, she looked up at him, her expression thoughtful. "Dad," she said softly, "I used to hate it when people stared at us. But now, I don't mind as much. I know who I am, and I know we're a family." Rob felt a lump in his throat. He leaned down, brushing a stray curl off her forehead. "That's right, Tess. We're a family, and no one can take that away from us." As he left her room, he realized how much he had gained by becoming their father. And in that moment, he felt a deep gratitude for Mother Vivian, for the church, and most of all, for the 6 girls who had transformed his life in ways he could never have imagined. Through the ups and downs, the whispers and the smiles, they had found their place in Greenfield. And Rob knew they would continue to stand together as a family, strengthened by the love and community they had discovered. Years pass, and each of Rob's daughters develops her unique personality and path. Chloe, the oldest, acts as a second mom, helping with chores and calming her younger sisters. Naomi expresses herself through art, painting her family's stories. Tessa is passionate about sports and earns a spot on the high school basketball team, while Mia finds solace in books and dreams of becoming a writer. Lane channels her frustrations into activism, and Zoe, the peacemaker, helps hold the family together. Rob marvels at the young women they're becoming, proud of the family they've built together. Tessa sat on the bench in the locker room, her shoulders tense as she listened to her teammates laugh and chat around her. Her basketball jersey clung to her, damp from practice, but she couldn't summon the energy to join in the conversation. Over the years, she'd gotten used to the stares, the occasional ignorant comments, but as she gotten older, the scrutiny seemed sharper, more pointed. Being the only black girl on the team made her stand out in ways she didn't want. One of the girls, Leah, leaned over, her eyes scanning Tessa with a look she couldn't quite decipher. "So, Tess, do you actually like living with, him?" Tessa clenched her jaw, knowing where this was going. "He's my dad," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Leah smirked. "But he's not your real dad, right? Like, don't you ever wonder what it would be like to have a real family?" Tessa's face burned as she pushed past the girl, grabbing her bag and storming out of the locker room. The weight of their words sat heavy on her chest. It was more than just teasing now. It was questioning who she was, where she belonged, and whether she even had the right to call Rob dad. When she got home that evening, she tried to ignore the looks from her sisters as she stomped up the stairs to her room, slamming the door behind her. She threw her bag down and sank onto her bed, her mind racing. She'd heard whispers like this before, but lately they had gotten to her in ways they never had before. She was tired of being different, of standing out, of constantly having to justify her place. The tension simmered inside her over the next few days, spilling over into sharp remarks and distance from her family. She avoided her sisters, skipped family dinners, and ignored Rob's attempts to talk. But it all came to a head one Saturday evening, when Rob finally knocked on her door, his voice gentle but firm. "Tessa, can we talk?" Reluctantly, she opened the door, her gaze hardening as she met his concerned eyes. "What is it, Dad?" Rob sighed, his face lined with worry. I can see you're hurting, And I want to help. I know things haven't been easy lately, but shutting us out won't make it any better. Tessa clenched her fists, her frustration bubbling over. You don't get it, Dad. You'll never get it. You don't know what it's like to be me, to feel like you don't belong anywhere. Rob took a step back, visibly hurt by her words, but determined not to let it show. You belong here, Tess. You belong with us. We're your family. Her anger flared, her voice rising. But no one else thinks so. Everywhere I go, people stare at me like I'm some kind of outsider. They think you're just playing house with a bunch of black kids to make yourself feel better. Rob's face fell, his heart breaking as he listened to her pain. But before he could respond, Tessa stormed past him, grabbing her jacket from the closet. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she had to get out of that house, away from everything that reminded her of the confusion she felt. She slammed the front door behind her, leaving Rob standing in the hallway, his face etched with worry. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp against her skin, but she barely felt it as she walked aimlessly through the quiet streets of Greenfield. Her steps eventually led her to the bus station on the edge of town. She sat on a bench beneath a flickering light, hugging her knees as she stared down the dark road, wondering what life would be like if she just left. In her mind, she pictured a city far away where she could start fresh, where no one would know her or her family. She wouldn't have to answer any questions, wouldn't have to explain herself or feel the weight of the expectations pressing down on her. But as she stared into the distance, the reality of leaving sank in, and a pang of fear took hold. She didn't hear the footsteps approaching until she felt someone sit down beside her. She glanced over, her heart skipping a beat when she saw Rob there, his face pale with worry, his breath slightly ragged from running. Tess, he said softly, reaching out a hand. Please, just talk to me. Tessa looked away, her shoulders tense. Why'd you follow me? Because you're my daughter, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. And no matter how far you go, I'll always come after you. The sincerity in his words made her throat tighten, but she kept her gaze fixed on the empty road. But you don't understand, Dad. I don't belong here. Not in this town, not on that team, not even in this family. People look at us and think. They think it's wrong. Rob reached over, gently placing his hand over hers. Tessa, I know I can't fully understand what you're going through. I'll never know what it's like to be in your shoes, and I'm sorry for that. But I do know that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I chose you, Tess. I chose all of you. Not because I felt sorry for you, not because I needed to make myself feel better, but because I love you. Because you are my daughter. She blinked back tears, her voice wavering. But sometimes it just feels so hard, Dad. Like no matter how much I try, I'll never really fit in. Rob's grip on her hand tightened. I'm sorry that people make you feel that way, Tessa. It breaks my heart that I can't shield you from every ignorant thing people say. But you are not defined by what others think of us. You belong with me, with our family, because love is what makes us family, not what we look like. For the first time in days, Tessa let her guard down, a single tear slipping down her cheek. Do you really mean that? Rob turned to face her, his expression full of love and determination. More than anything, and if anyone can't see how special, strong, and amazing you are, then they're the ones missing out. I would go to the ends of the earth for you, Tess. And I'll never stop being your father. Not ever. A sob escaped her lips as she leaned into him, finally allowing herself to cry. Rob wrapped his arms around her, holding her close as she released the pain, frustration, and doubt that had weighed her down. He stroked her hair gently, whispering words of comfort, telling her over and over that she was loved, that she belonged, that she was home. After a while, when her breathing steadied, she pulled back, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, Dad, for running off like that. Rob smiled softly, shaking his head. There's nothing to apologize for. I'll always be here to find you if you get lost. You don't have to go through this alone. They sat in silence for a few moments, watching as a lone car passed by on the dark road. Eventually, Rob spoke again, his voice gentle. Come home with me, Tessa. Let's face this together. As a family. Tessa nodded, a small but genuine smile breaking through her exhaustion. She took his hand, letting him guide her back toward the car, feeling a renewed sense of warmth and belonging. As they pulled into the driveway, Rob glanced over at her, his eyes shining with love and pride. You're strong, Tess, and you don't have to change a thing about who you are. You just need to keep being you. She nodded, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She wasn't alone. She never had been. Her family was her anchor, her place of belonging, no matter what anyone else said. And as she walked back into the house with her father by her side, she felt, for the first time in a long while, like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. With Tessa's return, Rob decides to step up even more. He attends workshops, reads books, and joins community conversations on racial justice to better understand his daughter's experiences. Their bond deepens as he learns to listen and support them in ways he hadn't before. Rob is there for Chloe's college graduation, Naomi's first art show, and Tessa's basketball games, always cheering them on, reminding each girl of her worth and strength. The signs had been creeping up on Rob for months. First, the occasional wave of dizziness, then the nagging cough that refused to go away. He felt his energy fading, his once steady pace slowing. Yet, every time he felt the heaviness settle in his chest, he brushed it off as simply getting older. After all, he was in his 60s now, and raising 6 daughters hadn't exactly been an easy ride. But as spring unfolded and his fatigue grew harder to ignore, even Rob found himself reaching for excuses to explain the shortness of breath and the constant ache in his body. He convinced himself that his daughters didn't need anything more to worry about. They were all stepping into new chapters in their lives, and he wanted to be there to support them, not add to their burdens. So he kept his symptoms a secret, willing himself to push through, telling himself he'd be fine. The day of Mia's barbecue started off like a dream. The sun was shining, the smell of burgers and corn on the grill filled the backyard, and laughter echoed as the girls mingled with friends and neighbors. Chloe was bustling around, making sure everyone had a drink and enough food, while Naomi hung back with Rob, talking about her latest art project. Rob watched them, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. Mia had just been accepted into a writing program, a prestigious one, and her joy was contagious. He smiled as he watched her laugh with Lane, who teased her about finally getting out of Greenfield. Zoe was playing frisbee with Tessa, their laughter ringing out each time the disc went wildly off course. In that moment, everything felt perfect. But as he moved toward the grill, a wave of dizziness hit him like a punch to the gut. He gripped the edge of the table, his vision blurring as he tried to steady himself. Just a moment, he thought, willing the feeling to pass. He tried to shake it off, but the spinning grew worse, his legs weakening beneath him. The sounds around him began to fade, the laughter, the music, all blurring into a distant hum. Before he could call for help, everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on a hospital bed, the sterile scent and harsh lighting telling him immediately where he was. He blinked, disoriented, as his daughters' faces came into focus, their expressions a mix of fear and relief. Chloe, sitting closest to him, grabbed his hand, her face pale. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You scared us." Rob tried to smile, but the pain in his chest reminded him why he was there. He cleared his throat, avoiding their worried gazes. "I'm sorry, girls. Guess I overdid it at the barbecue, huh?" But his attempt at humor fell flat. Mia, sitting beside Chloe, shook her head, her eyes red from crying. "Dad, this isn't just you being tired. You've been coughing, losing weight. Why didn't you tell us?" The girls crowded around him, their faces etched with concern, and for the first time in his life, Rob felt utterly helpless. He had spent years protecting them, giving them strength and security, but now he was the one in need. He was the one who had to rely on them. Later that day, the doctor came in with the results, his face grave. Rob braced himself, but his heart sank when he heard the words, "Stage 3 lung cancer." The doctor explained the severity, detailing the treatment plan, chemotherapy, radiation, possibly surgery. The words washed over Rob in a blur, his mind reeling. He glanced at his daughters, who listened with tense expressions, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. It pained him to see them look so vulnerable, and he wanted nothing more than to shield them from this reality. But he knew that, just as he had stood by them through their struggles, they were now ready to stand by him. Over the following weeks, the girls rallied around him with a fierce determination that mirrored his own resolve from years ago. Each of them took on a role, finding unique ways to support him, and showing him the strength he had helped cultivate in each of them. Chloe, the eldest and ever the caregiver, became his health advocate, organizing appointments, researching treatment options, and keeping a meticulous schedule of his medications and therapies. She asked the hard questions, making sure the doctors and nurses knew they had a team behind them. Naomi poured her heart into creating art that would brighten his hospital room, filling the walls with sketches, watercolors, and portraits of their family. She made him promise to hang every piece in his house, creating a tapestry of love and color to keep his spirits lifted. Tessa took on the role of physical therapist. On his good days, she would insist on taking him for walks around the hospital, encouraging him to keep his strength up. She'd set small goals, just one more lap, one more flight of stairs, and would high-five him after each accomplishment, reminding him he was still the strong dad she knew. Mia, whose passion for writing had earned her that coveted spot in the program, spent hours reading to him during chemo sessions. She chose stories of resilience, tales of unlikely heroes who overcame great odds. She'd sit by his bed, her voice soothing as she read to him, the soft sound a comfort amidst the harsh reality of the treatments. Lane, the fierce activist, channeled her energy into raising awareness about lung cancer. She organized fundraisers in Greenfield, rallied the community to support research, and even started a blog sharing their family's journey, hoping to inspire others facing similar battles. And Zoe, the peacemaker, became his constant source of calm. She never left his side, always ready with a reassuring smile or a comforting hug. On the hardest days when the treatments left him weak and defeated, Zoe would sit with him in silence, letting him know he wasn't alone. As the months dragged on, the treatments took their toll. There were days when Rob could barely muster the strength to get out of bed. Days when the pain was so intense that he questioned whether it was all worth it. But each time he faltered, his daughters were there, bolstering him with the same love and determination he had once given them. One evening, after a particularly grueling chemo session, Tessa sat by his bedside, holding his hand. She looked at him, her eyes bright with tears she was trying to hold back. "Dad," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "you always taught us to be strong. You taught us that family sticks together no matter what. So we're here and we're not going anywhere. We're in this with you." Rob's throat tightened, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude. He had spent years giving them his strength, guiding them through life's storms. But now, as he looked into Tessa's eyes, he saw the depth of their resilience, their unbreakable bond. And he realized that they had become his pillars, the strength that kept him going. In the weeks that followed, the family's routine became a mix of doctor's visits, moments of laughter, and quiet conversations. Through it all, the girls remained steadfast, never letting him feel like a burden, always reminding him of the love and unity that defined their family. One late night, Rob found himself alone in his hospital room, the steady beep of the monitor his only company. He looked around at the artwork Naomi had hung on the walls, at the stacks of books Mia had brought, and at a bouquet of wildflowers Lane had picked from their yard. His daughters had given him everything he needed to keep fighting, to keep hoping. They were his lifeline, the reason he woke up each morning determined to push through. As dawn broke, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and orange, Rob felt a profound sense of peace. He knew he might never fully conquer the illness that had invaded his body, but he also knew that he had already won in the ways that mattered most. He had raised 6 extraordinary young women who would carry his legacy of love, strength, and resilience. When the nurse came in that morning, she found Rob sitting up, a serene smile on his face as he gazed out the window. "Good morning, Mr. Jackson. How are you feeling?" He looked over at her, his heart filled with gratitude for the family that had gathered around him in his time of need. "I'm feeling stronger than I ever have," he replied, his voice steady and sure. "Thanks to my girls, I know I'm going to be just fine." And in that moment, as the sun rose over Greenfield, Rob realized that no matter what the future held, he would always have the love and resilience of his daughters to carry him through. Each daughter steps into a role, supporting Rob through grueling treatments. Chloe, the natural caregiver, coordinates his appointments and ensures he gets the best care. Naomi brightens his days with her art. Tessa motivates him to stay active. Mia reads to him. Lane organizes fundraisers for cancer research, and Zoe's comforting presence brings him peace. Rob, now leaning on his daughters, feels immense pride in the strong, compassionate women they've become. 5 years. It felt like a lifetime and an instant all at once. Rob Jackson, who had faced down one of life's toughest battles, could hardly believe he had come this far. The day he received the call from his oncologist confirming he was in remission, Rob felt the weight of the past years lift off his shoulders, replaced by a lightness he hadn't felt in a long time. The news spread quickly through his family, and soon his house was filled with laughter, joyful tears, and the tight hugs of his 6 daughters. Unknown to him, his girls had been planning something special, a way to mark the milestone not just for Rob, but for everyone who had been part of their journey. Over the next few weeks, the girls' behavior became suspiciously secretive. They whispered to each other behind closed doors, exchanged furtive glances at the dinner table, and took mysterious phone calls that abruptly ended when Rob entered the room. He tried not to let his curiosity get the best of him, but the knowing smirks from Chloe and Mia only deepened the mystery. Finally, one Saturday evening, the girls insisted on taking him out. "We're going to have dinner together," Chloe announced, the glint in her eyes barely concealing her excitement. Rob shrugged, playing along even though he was nearly bursting with questions. "Dinner, huh? Should I be worried?" They all piled into 2 cars, with Mia's Jeep leading the way, and drove through Greenfield. To Rob's surprise, they pulled up to the Greenfield Community Center, which was quiet and dark from the outside. But as soon as they stepped through the doors, the lights flickered on, and a chorus of voices shouted, "Surprise!" Rob stood frozen, his eyes widening as he took in the scene before him. The community center was packed with familiar faces, friends, family, and neighbors. People he had known for years and others he'd helped in small, meaningful ways. From former colleagues on the police force to the members of his church and the townsfolk who had watched his girls grow up, the room was a sea of smiles, applause, and laughter. As the crowd parted to make way for him, Rob's heart swelled with emotion. Standing before him were his 6 daughters, each of them beaming with pride and love. They ushered him to a seat at the front of the room, a place of honor surrounded by balloons, flowers, and a huge banner that read, "Celebrating Rob Jackson, a legacy of love and family." The celebration began with a video tribute, carefully curated by Naomi and Tessa. As the lights dimmed, the screen flickered to life, displaying clips and photos from Rob's life. Snapshots of his days on the police force, pictures of him with his daughters at birthdays and graduations, and moments captured from family holidays. The screen then transitioned to video messages from people whose lives he had touched over the years. First up was Tom, his former partner on the force. "Rob, I don't know if you ever realized just how much you mean to this town. You're a friend, a father, a mentor. I've watched you raise those girls into incredible young women, and I couldn't be prouder to know you." The camera then shifted to Mother Vivian, her warm smile filling the screen. "Rob, you came into our community with an open heart and you embraced us as family. You've taught us that love can bridge any divide. Thank you for everything you've done, not only for your girls, but for all of us." Next, the screen showed a former foster child Rob had mentored years ago. Now a young man with a family of his own, he spoke with emotion. "Mr. Jackson, you gave me hope when I had none. You showed me that I mattered. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." The video concluded with a montage of photos of Rob and the girls over the years, each picture telling the story of their family, a family bound not by blood, but by choice. As the final image faded, the lights came back on, and the room erupted in applause. Rob sat in his seat, wiping tears from his eyes as he looked around at the faces of those who had come to celebrate him. Then Chloe stepped forward, holding a microphone and smiling warmly at her father. "Dad," she began, her voice filled with emotion. "We wanted tonight to be about showing you just how much you mean to us and to everyone here. You've spent your whole life giving to others, showing us what it means to love unconditionally. So we wanted to give you something in return." Chloe nodded to Mia and Lane, who walked up carrying a large framed certificate. They placed it gently in Rob's hands. He looked down, reading the words aloud, his voice trembling. "The Rob Jackson Foundation for Foster Care and Adoption," he whispered, unable to believe what he was seeing. Chloe continued, her voice steady and full of pride. "We started a foundation in your honor, Dad. The Rob Jackson Foundation will support foster and adoptive families, particularly families adopting children of color. We want to help other kids find the kind of love and family that you gave us." As Rob's eyes filled with tears, Lane took the microphone, her voice choked with emotion. "Dad, we've seen what real love looks like because of you. And we want this foundation to be a reflection of that love, a way to give other children the chance to experience what we did. Each of his daughters took turns speaking, sharing how he had impacted their lives, instilled confidence in them, and taught them to be proud of who they were. Tessa spoke of his unwavering support through her own struggles, Chloe of his strength and resilience, Mia of his quiet encouragement, Naomi of his kindness, Lane of his passion for justice, and Zoe of his compassion. "We wouldn't be the women we are today without you, Dad," Zoe finished, her voice barely a whisper. "This foundation is our way of saying thank you." The room was silent, the weight of their words settling over everyone present. Rob sat, overwhelmed with gratitude, his heart too full for words. He looked around at the faces of his daughters, his family, his community, and felt a profound sense of peace. All his years of love, sacrifice, and devotion had come full circle, culminating in a legacy he could never have imagined. Slowly he rose to his feet, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say. You girls have given me the greatest gift of all, seeing the women you've become, the lives you're going to touch. I thought I was just a father, but you've shown me that our family can change lives. Thank you. Thank you all." The crowd erupted in applause once more, friends and family cheering and hugging him, each one taking a moment to express their gratitude for his kindness, his compassion, and his dedication to his daughters. As the evening went on, the Greenfield Community Center buzzed with laughter, conversation, and joy. The girls introduced Rob to people they had worked with in building the foundation, and community members eagerly offered their support, sharing stories of how Rob had impacted their lives in ways both big and small. He heard tales of encouragement, moments of kindness, and memories that had stayed with people for years. Toward the end of the night, as the crowd began to thin, Rob found himself alone on the edge of the dance floor, watching his daughters laugh and talk with friends and family. Chloe joined him, slipping her arm through his. "You did this," she said softly, leaning her head against his shoulder. "All of this is because of you." He looked down at her, a gentle smile on his face. "No, sweetheart. This is because of all of us. We built this family together." As he glanced back at the crowd, his heart full of gratitude and pride, Rob knew he had created something lasting, something that would continue to ripple out into the world long after he was gone. The Rob Jackson Foundation would live on as a testament to the power of love, to the belief that family is more than just blood. It's a choice, a commitment, a promise. And as he held Chloe close, watching his other daughters laugh and dance under the soft lights of the community center, Rob felt a deep and abiding peace. He had given them all he could, and in return, they had given him everything he had ever wanted: a family, a legacy, and a love that would endure through generations. The foundation is dedicated to helping foster and adoptive families, especially those adopting children of color. It provides cultural education, resources, and support for families like Rob's. Rob, overwhelmed, sees his life's purpose reflected in his daughter's commitment to helping other children find homes. As each daughter shares how he shaped her life, he's overcome with gratitude and pride, realizing that his journey has come full circle. In his later years, Rob watches as each daughter carves out her own path. Chloe becomes the director of child services, Naomi is a renowned artist, Tessa travels as a motivational speaker, Mia is a published author, Lane is a political activist, and Zoe, ever the peacemaker, becomes a therapist. The foundation they created in his name thrives, and Rob finds comfort in knowing his legacy of love and family will live on. On a quiet autumn evening, Rob sits on the porch with his daughters. Reflecting on their journey, he feels content. His daughters, once 6 scared girls huddled in a corner, are now strong, confident women with lives of their own. As they laugh together, Rob realizes he has achieved his life's greatest purpose. They are bound by love, a family forged through choice and resilience, and Rob knows he is the richest man in the world, not in wealth, but in the love and family surrounding him. Rob's journey with his 6 adopted daughters, built on resilience and love, shows how family is defined by much more than blood. Facing every challenge together, they forged an unbreakable bond. What do you think of Rob's story? Would you have made the same choice? And if you were one of his daughters, how would you honor him? Share your thoughts in the comments on this inspiring tale of love and family, and don't forget to subscribe.